What a great song, too. Remember, did Josh write it?
He did.
And Seth wrote it? Seth and Josh? Woo, that's great. I love that you said, remember who you are. I have this practice since July, since I went to the Mary Magdalene retreat, where before my meditation, I pick a card. I have a Mary Magdalene oracle deck, and I pick a card from there, and it gives me a little statement or affirmation, and then often a question that I take into meditation. And yesterday, the card was remembering. It said, remember who you are. We talked about this, we want to have something in there. Remember when you cross that threshold, remember who you are in this sanctuary. Remember that you are not only human, but you're also divine. And so I took this into my meditation, and total blank. Okay. That's supposed to happen in meditation, right? So it worked. Anyway, remember who we are, and not to put the human part down. Embrace that too. Embrace it in all its messiness, in all its chaos, in all its drama, in all its joy and its love and its peace. But don't forget that you're also a divine being. And that's what this program is all about, this sacred art of loving kindness, that we get to practice this, and that we're working through the 13 attributes of loving kindness, or as Rabbi Rami talked about last week, actually the 13 attributes of spirit. Same thing, right? Spirit, loving kindness, God, it's all the same. So it's a matter of what voice are we going to listen to? Which angel are we going to follow? Richard Rohr had a blog post this week where he said, we often follow the voice of the ego, and it's often that nasty voice that tells us we're not good enough, or we're not enough, we're not doing well enough, we're not, enough. Instead of listening to the voice that says we are plenty, we are loving, and following that path. Listen to the right voice. Remember who you are. It's all kind of feels like it's all coming together in this song it did. We all fall down. We all have challenges. We all have pain. It's part of the human experience. And we're all divine. If we can remember that. Remember. So this week we're working with equanimity, which is the 6th attribute from this book by Rabbi Rami Shapiro. If you're new to us, if you haven't been paying attention to what we've been doing, this is week 4 of a 7-week program. We had the first ones are recognizing the divine in yourself, recognizing the divine in others, creativity, compassion. Last week was grace. And this week is equanimity. And I wish I would have given Rabbi Rami this week instead, and I would have taken grace. I have never used this word in my life, ever, equanimity. So I'm reading the chapter like for the 4th, 5th time, and I'm like, what is this word? What does it even mean? And then I was gifted this book, Loving Kindness by Sharon Salzberg, who Rabbi Rami has referred to in this book. And she wrote the book, Loving Kindness. And she has a chapter on equanimity as well. And he talks about, and both of them talk about letting go. Both of them talking about non-reactivity. They talk about how we have to see that there's more than just the little pieces in life, that there's always something greater that's going on, and can we see that? Can we hear that voice? And I'm still going, yeah, but what is equanimity? But what is it? What is this word that we're using today to describe loving kindness, to describe the divine, to describe an aspect of us that we have access to it. It's a really hard word to describe. That there's the things of the world, and then there's that which is beyond it. And so can we hold that? The mystery, there's so much mystery that we don't know, so many things we don't know in our lifetimes, and we want to control it. And the equanimity helps us balance it out. There again, like, okay, but what is equanimity? And then Friday I found this short video. Let's take a look at this.
Equanimity is one of those words that I come across somewhat regularly, but for the longest time I didn't know exactly what it meant. If you're in a similar boat right now, I hope you find this sketch to be helpful. We're going to use the visual metaphor of a mountain. It's got a strong foundation, various ridges and slopes to it, maybe some snow at the top, and some trees here and there. Then imagine that mountain in a storm. The wind is blowing hard, clouds are dumping rain or snow, and yet in the midst of that snow, this is how the mountain feels. It's quite content. It can handle that wind and rain, and maybe even make use of it. Equanimity is a term to describe the state of mind of this mountain. More specifically, it's about mental calmness, composure, and evenness of temper, especially in a difficult situation. It describes a particular mental state, but also emotional state, that for me has come up in the context of meditation, which is a type of activity where this skill can be developed. With some practice during a calm part of your day, which will make it more likely to embody this trait later in the day when an inevitable difficult situation arises. And perhaps it might be helpful to picture this scene. The next time you do that practice or encounter that difficult situation, imagine yourself as this mountain and see if that helps you respond to the situation with more equanimity.
So, that's all. Didn't that clear it up? We're a mountain. That's what equanimity is. Be the mountain. Just be the mountain that doesn't matter what's going on all around it. So then I'm reading Sharon Salzberg's chapter on equanimity again, and I totally miss this. Equanimity is a spacious stillness of the mind, a radiant calm that allows us to be present fully with all the different changing experiences that constitute our world and our lives. Isn't that the mountain? That's the mountain. So she talks also about, in this chapter, about a Buddhist story from Buddhism, and there was a man that was visiting a Buddhist monastery. And he comes across a monk in the temple, and he's got questions, and so he goes up to the monk, and the monk's meditating, so the monk doesn't respond at all. And the man gets angry and storms off and leaves. Next day, he comes back again. And he comes across a different monk. And this monk is a very eager student. He's excited about what he's learning. And so the man asks him some questions, and the monk goes on and on and on with this long discourse. Again, the man gets very angry, storms off and stomps away. And third day, comes back again to the monastery, finds a different monk. This monk had heard what happened with the one that was silent and the one that talked too much, so he decided he's going to give him just a little bit of information. Just the right amount. Sounds like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, right? Just this little bit. But the man gets angry and storms off again. So the three monks go to Buddha. And they say, what's going on? This man, we talk, somebody said nothing, somebody said a little bit, somebody said a lot. Why is this man still angry? Doesn't seem like we can please him. And the Buddha said to them, you're going to get blame in this world. There's going to be people who are not happy with you. There's going to be people who are angry with you. No matter what you do, it's going to happen. And your job is to not let it affect you. Accept it. No matter what you do, you could get blame or praise. The same talk, the same lesson, the same behavior can get blame or praise. We can't control what anybody is going to do or say or how they're going to react. But we can control somewhat, if we practice this, our own peace of mind. Our own peace of mind. By not letting it sway us one way or the other. Be the mountain. Be the mountain. I got to practice this about a week and a half ago. Really good situation, got to practice equanimity. Again, I didn't know about the mountain then. I was still struggling with what is equanimity. My daughter was in labor, and she was at the hospital, and the last text I got from her about 1:45 in the afternoon, and she said, "I'm dilated to 10, my water just broke, here we go." And so I knew that their plan, her and her husband's plan, was to have, after the baby's born, have an hour of skin-to-skin time, just the three of them, the baby and she and her husband. And then the next hour would be whatever they had to do in the hospital and the doctors, and they were going to get her into a room, and that's when I could go to the hospital to see the baby, meet the baby. So as I know she's in labor and I know she's, birthing her baby, I'm meditating, I'm praying, I'm envisioning angels all around them. I'm trying to just stay very calm and peaceful. I don't know what's going on. I mean, I kind of know what's going on. I've given birth twice, but I didn't know what was actually happening with her. Hour goes by, and I decide I'm going to read this chapter on equanimity. I'm going to get ahead of myself because I wasn't speaking that Sunday because Rabbi Jamie was here, but I'm going to get a jump start on today. So I'm reading the chapter, and I'm really trying to practice. Well, here's a mystery. I don't know what's going on with my daughter in the moment, and I get to practice just holding it, just being at peace, knowing that I have no control over any of this. I have to accept that. Not easy when it's your baby in the hospital. Couple hours, 3 hours go by. I'm thinking, okay, anytime now they're going to call me and say, "Come on to the hospital, she's born," and nothing. And I had to keep practicing. Release, don't react, you don't know what's happening. It was 5 hours before I got a text from my son-in-law who said that a baby girl was born at 2:48. That's 4 hours unaccounted for since the baby was born. And, we all have great imaginations, and so you can imagine where my head went because we have a negativity bias. Oh my God, what's wrong with my daughter? What happened? Practice. I'm the mountain. I didn't know I was the mountain, but I'm the mountain, smiling. Everything's good. He said they were healthy, and it wasn't until my daughter called shortly after, and there were complications after the baby was born with both the baby and her. And it was pretty sketchy there for a little bit. And my son-in-law couldn't text me and say, "Hey, we have a new baby." He was going between his new daughter and his wife, who were both having complications, issues. And so he said, "You can come tomorrow." Doesn't sit well with a mom, yeah. but he's taking care of his family, and I love him for that. And so the next day I went and met my granddaughter. She was 4.5 pounds. To show the first picture, that's me. She was in the NICU for a few days. Because she's so little. And then she got to go home last Saturday, the next picture. And I didn't get to know her name. I get to the hospital on a week ago, Thursday, and I said, "What's her name?" That's her going home outfit that I bought her in Portugal. Yeah. I said, "What's her name?" And my daughter wouldn't tell me the name until I was holding her. And when I was that picture, when I was holding her, then she said, I want you to meet your new granddaughter. Her name is Zoe Cadence. And Zoe means life, which I was affirming life through her whole pregnancy because it was a risky pregnancy, high-risk pregnancy. And cadence is rhythm or flow. And so life flowing. It's beautiful. She's beautiful. So that's Zoe Cadence, and I'm so happy. Yeah. So we get an opportunity to practice these things, and if I didn't have spiritual tools and I didn't have a meditation practice, I don't know how I would have spent those 5 hours. And maybe I would have gone to the hospital against their wishes. I don't know. But he had to be the mountain. And where does this come in when Jesus says, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move the mountain? Different mountain, different story, different metaphor. This mountain doesn't move. This mountain doesn't move. So how do we cultivate this equanimity? How do we get more of it in our lives? How do we tap into it when we're faced with a challenge? Well, meditation is really, really important to spend time in the silence and practice that so that when something does come up, you already have a practice to fall back on. As I was meditating during those 5 hours, I didn't know what was going on. Was it scary? Yeah, hell yeah, it was scary. Yeah, it was scary. But I wasn't in control of that. We so often want to be in control of everything. How else is we can get ourselves involved with more people? Spacious mind, as Rami talks about. Spacious mind means being able to take in more, being able to hold more, being able to see different viewpoints and not have them shatter us. I watched a documentary last week called Join or Die. Anybody seen it? It's on Netflix. We were looking at maybe streaming it here, but then I found it on Netflix, so you all can go watch it yourselves on Netflix. It's a documentary on a book based on a book called Bowling Alone, which came out in 2000, written by Robert Putnam. And his premise in the book, as he looked at a lot of data, a lot of statistics, is that since about 1965, all trends have been down as far as group participation, church participation, all kinds of groups, all kinds of social groups, any kinds of groups. So we become a nation of non-joiners. And that we are really about being individualistic. And since 2000, since he wrote the book, it's gotten worse. Because of technology, because of our ability to be on our phones all the time, have everything instant right here, we don't join. And so he talked about bowling alone in that what used to be in bowling alleys was they would have lots of bowling leagues where people would bowl together. But the bowling alleys were struggling, this post-1965. They were struggling because people weren't joining leagues anymore. People were still bowling, but when they're in a league, they drink, they eat, they stick around, they socialize, they hang out, and the bowling alleys made more money from, food and drinks than they did from the bowling alley. And so anyway, he took this and he had spent 5 years collecting data, and all the trends were down. And he said, there's a loneliness epidemic in this world, in this country, in this world, really. We're so alone. And it's just as dangerous as smoking, as heart disease, as cancer, that we need each other. We need social activities. We need to connect with people. And by connecting with people, we expand our minds because we have different views. We're hanging out with people that aren't exactly like us. And it's okay to hang out with people that aren't exactly like us. And so he says in the movie, pretty good chance you're going to die. Pretty good chance. Your chance of dying in the next year decreases by 50% by joining one group. One group. That's how much we need people in our lives, how much we need to not be isolated. And the pandemic only made all this worse, right? So at the end, he's talking about how, all he did was say everything's down, everything's down, everything's down, and this is where we're at. He's decided that he needed to do something more. And so he wrote a second book. I just got it, and I haven't read it, but it's called Upswing. Like if things were going down, when did they go up? And about 100 years ago, things went up. And so what we have is an inverted U. And so if we can look at 100 years ago and what we did then and the mistakes we made so that we don't make them again, we can reverse this trend. That we can be a community again, of many communities. And it's good for everything. It's good for our government. It's good for our schools. It's just good for our economy, everything, when we join groups. Because we learn how to get along with people. We learn how to socialize. We learn how to be more accepting of others. And that gives us a spacious mind, and that gives us more equanimity. We can be the mountain. Be the mountain. Sharon Salzberg talks about that there are, think of it this way, like with seasons. The seasons change, and we may have a preference for one versus the other. But do we get angry because the seasons are changing? Do we try to control it and say, no, I don't want summer to be over. I'm going to make sure summer stays. It doesn't happen that way. We need to learn to accept life as it is. And that no matter how much we try to control life, we can't. Only our thoughts, our emotions, that we can. So we'll be the mountain when we can accept, when we can be at peace with what is. And then we can be in a better place to express loving kindness. So I want to close with this poem, this Chinese poem that she has in this chapter on equanimity. 10,000 flowers in spring, the moon in autumn, a cool breeze in summer, snow in winter. If your mind is not clouded by unnecessary things, this is the best season of your life. No matter what it is, the best season of your life, you can make it today. Make it now. Be the mountain. Namaste.